do a quick rerun on it because there are some very specific questions. And take a look at it tonight, and then we'll discuss it in section. Mathilde has to come from Sacramento, and sometimes traffic can be kind of dicey. So we're waiting for her now. I know she'll show up, and she'll breeze in and bring her special kind of spirit and cheer to us. I thought about perhaps introducing the organization that she works for, but as opposed to talking about Mathilde, because I know how deeply she feels about the Friends of Rwanda Association. So before we send our bowl around, you remember I told you about that. I'd like to talk a little bit about FORA, Friends of Rwanda Association. Please come in. It's your boss. Welcome, boss. Yes? Do you have a flyer, Barbara?
Yes.
You certainly can. The Friends of Rwanda Association is a nonprofit, people-to-people program for helping orphan children in Rwanda and helping them learn how to support themselves. FORA was founded in 1995 after the 1994 genocide that took place in Rwanda. And here is Mathilde. I told you she'd be here. I'm talking about FORA. I decided that instead of introducing you, that I would tell the students about FORA. Okay, so it comes from the website. All right? Okay. The organization specializes in serving the people who live in remote areas not served by other agencies. So what are the things that are needed in Rwanda? Well, following the war and genocide, much of the country was left in shambles, including its schools. Teachers were killed and buildings destroyed. Today, Rwanda spends about 1/4 the money on basic education that its neighbors in Uganda and Tanzania spend. Families must pay fees even for basic elementary school education. High school is beyond the reach of most families. Many children were left without parents or homes, and many of these children had to raise their younger brothers and sisters. FORA helps child heads of household support their younger siblings. So what can we do? Well, FORA is a friend to innocent victims and helps to equip young survivors to better support themselves and their families. We can support FORA by giving our time and our money and our talents to further their goals of bringing skills of intermediate technology to children who might otherwise be overlooked. Doing this, we will help children learn how to earn a living. To support themselves and their families. The people who work with FORA are all volunteers. There are no paid staff and no bureaucracy, which is music to my ears. So what are the programs specifically that FORA engages in? Well, there's a solidarity camp, a community of unity and reconciliation. You know, we've talked about how important it is that there be reconciliation in Rwanda and how difficult that process is. There's a sewing project which helps young women learn the skills needed to create a occupation. There is a sister house project. And the sister house project is, I have it here, sister house project, provides living quarters for 18 families headed by orphan children and for 12 destitute widows of the genocide. FORA, the thing we're most familiar with, supplies tuition fees for poor young students at secondary school, and in general is a very strong, supportive organization that works to improve the lives of the survivors in Rwanda. It has been our unique gift to have Mathilde Mukatabana serve as someone who advises us about Rwanda and who comes every year to tell you about what is going on in that place. It's real easy for us to read books and not feel the heart and the spirit of a people. And Mathilde is able to do that. Before I introduce her, I promised you that we would pass this wonderful bowl she gave us to raise funds so that she can continue her important work. So, without further ado, I present someone who I'm very grateful to be able to call my friend. Would you welcome Mathilde Mukatabana?
Good afternoon. It's always a pleasure for me to come here. It's like coming to family members because there's no other place in the world, for the longest time than Sonoma. When I connected with your school, it has been another level of mending the fabric of our society. I haven't really found any other campus where I know very well that I don't have to explain much. People understand. And that's the biggest gift anyone can give. It's when people can listen and we know very well that we are talking the same language. There are not many universities taking Holocaust or genocide studies, as you know very well. So, and last weekend, we were here for the inauguration of the Memorial Grove here at Sonoma State, and it has become even more dear to us. So the people from the Friends of Rwanda Association just told me to say thank you again. They said your campus has a certain spirit that they couldn't find any other place. So thank you very much. Okay. I'm trying for this afternoon. There are two things I'm going to try to do because I believe when you talk about personal but also intellectual connections to genocide, there are three things I'm going to do. First of all, I'll talk briefly about the country, and I'll try to talk about genocide from my perspective. And if we have time, I want to show the biggest courage you can find when people confront to genocide, especially women in Rwanda. The women in Rwanda, we have a video made by a friend, a personal friend, and we interviewed the women. They are infected with HIV. It was one of the weapons of genocide, rape. And yet, they have moved on to become one of the best case scenario on how to deal with genocide at the end. So I just want to do maybe 40 minutes and then we can go to the movie because I would like you to see it. It's called Mother Courage in Rwanda. Okay, so if we can begin the PowerPoint, I think I'll go with it. It's about Rwanda. This is the geographical position of Rwanda. Rwandans always were very happy, and if I just took some allergy medicine, so I might repeat myself so you appreciate it. But we are in the heart of Africa, in central east of Africa. And that position was always like something that was destined to show Rwanda is a special place. We are in the heart of Africa. As you can see, this is the national emblem. And for people who have heard other discussions, we've heard at the university, the basket, especially, the basket symbolizes the reconciliation that is taking place. So it's a part of, it's everywhere. I mean, the flag, the emblem, and so on and so forth. So if we can move, do I have something to move? Okay. Pre-colonial Rwanda was a well-constituted kingdom. As a matter of fact, very complex in terms of the sophistication of how the kingdom was since the 11th century in Central Africa. And we had three groups of people, Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa. And in pre-colonial Rwanda, people identified themselves mostly by class than ethnicity. Class was more important. Obviously the majority of the people were poor people. Rwanda is a poor nation to begin with. But during that time, the chosen few were from the Tutsi group. It was like a feudal type of system. It was a feudal system. And if you want, you can move fast, I'll be fine. Yeah. Rwanda is one of the most beautiful countries you can, find, and I'm not being biased for people who have been. It's called the country of 1,000 years.
I'll give you the power.
Yeah.
It's a button underneath there.
Okay, so I can just.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Turn the lights off so that you can see better.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, there's the power. Oh, okay. So if you, it's known as a land of 1,000 years, very beautiful country. But in 1994, obviously, those years were full of bodies in one of the worst genocides in the 20th century. The whole culture was around cattle, and the people who owned, what they call pastoralists were the higher rank. They occupied the top layers, and those were the majority Tutsi. Sorry. A rich culture, or at least I always believe that we have one of the most beautiful culture. We are trying to use that also as a sign of reconciliation. So when you see dance or song, they are part of that. They tell a story. An agricultural-based economy. Rwanda is not poor, but what I'm saying, people rely on agriculture for their survival. This is how it looks usually if you come from the plain. And then more recently, it relies on tourism, especially the endangered mountain gorillas. You find them in Rwanda. That's the only place you can find those mountain gorillas. So it has been one of the places that they have kept the best species. And for now, Rwanda is benefiting from that. And that's why you can, for instance, when you think about what Rwanda has achieved in terms of economic growth, something that even the World Bank can't understand, it's because of the tourism, especially from people from the United States. You find people going to Rwanda for national parks and gorillas. I talk briefly about the history, but really, just to give you a quick background, Rwanda was a monarchy. That's the Dorasiki king of Rwanda. And 1890, we were colonized by Germany. And the king during that time was exiled because he refused Christianity. So he refused to embrace Christianity and he was exiled. So his son was put in place. And he gave his land to Jesus Christ, the king. So it became a Christian nation. I just want to show you this because I truly believe this is the roots of genocide. 19th century Europe, as you know very well, was experiencing with all the racist theories. You've heard about eugenic movements. They have talked about race and how they classify race and who was superior, who was inferior. So when the Germans came to Rwanda, of course they didn't know many people in Rwanda. So what they did was to classify people within the framework of racism. So the Tutsis supposedly were closer to Caucasian people. So they said they were the white blacks. So they were put in categories. So they became something else. And the rest of the population were known as Negroes. Negroes as, the people who were less civilized, who were unchristian, who were whatever. So this is one example of how they did it. They measured the nose. But this was very, there are many Tutsis who have a nose like this. This is supposed to be a Hutu nose, but most people have intermarried, and most people look alike. Really, when you go to Rwanda, you wouldn't impress me among the Tutsis. I'm not as tall, because usually they say that the Tutsis are tall and whatever. So that was the beginning of segregation. When people were really studied, they were put in certain categories by using identity card. You got a card, and you were a Tutsi, you were a Hutu. So the whole national character was gone. So I would say that really that was the beginning of the polarization of the ethnic groups in Rwanda. Torasi, king of Rwanda, usually he was a sign of reconciliation. He was a sign of national character. When you became a king, you abandoned your ethnicity. You were no longer Tutsi. You became a Rwandan because they wanted to bring the people together. And this was a ceremony every year when the king came and gave the milk to children. The milk was a sign of life. It was a sign of prosperity. And all the children in Rwanda usually came to get the milk from the king. But he was assassinated in 1959, and that was the end of monarchy. The Belgians, who had replaced the Germans after World War I, aligned themselves with the so-called Hutu majority at the end. So the king was out. They made a referendum. And that was the beginning, really, of the Tutsi massacres. So when you look at when you talk about 94 was the conclusion of their own, long oppression but also killing of Tutsis. 1959, 1962, 1973, and finally 1994. So that was the conclusion. And it was done when there was some kind of a culture of impunity. No one was saying these Tutsis are people. And the main defense was that the Tutsis have been the masters. They were the masters. They were the oppressor during colonialism and before. So you've probably read a book about, this is the first president, Kayibanda, who instead of calling himself a Rwandan president, called himself a Hutu president. So the Tutsis were excluded from that republic, the first republic in Rwanda. And as a matter of fact, he had interiorized the Hamitic theory. For him, the Tutsis were foreigners. As a matter of fact, and sometimes I don't even want to repeat this, but if you look at whatever was written in Rwandan news, the Tutsis were known as the Jews of Africa, the Jews. And so it was not difficult to kill them because they used, President Habyarimana, who replaced this one, read Mein Kampf, and he admired Hitler. And if you go to news, you'll see exactly what he said about those things. This is what he said. He said that the Hutu and the Tutsi are different, and they can't live together. Either you had to separate, you had to split the country, or you had to kill the Tutsis, because they couldn't live together. And the option was to kill them, and that was really the beginning. The second president who was killed in a plane crash supposedly starting a genocide of 1994. This is Habyarimana, and his policy was not to kill initially, but he completely excluded the Tutsis from any political or social kind of initiatives. So they established a quota system. You couldn't go to school. Even the few Tutsis who were in school were taken out. That's how one morning we were in a boarding school, they came and said, all the Tutsis out. That was it. And these are the troops that eventually, I just run fast, but the young people who were trained to kill all those years. This is the Rwanda Patriotic Front that stopped the genocide. You probably know that genocide went on for 3 months, and within 3 months, 1 million people died. 1 million people in Rwanda. In a few minutes, I'll show you a couple of scenes of genocide, but you can't describe it. If you were there in 1994, either you survived because you were under bodies, dead bodies, or you were in a hole, or you were in a tree. Most of the children survived because of their size. But people died that streets, houses, churches, anything, hospitals were full of bodies. Wherever you go, factories, where they make Coca-Cola machines and stuff like that. It was everywhere. You can imagine for a country the size of Maryland to lose 1 million people, what it means. It was almost everybody was killed. This is the president of Rwanda right now, the one who led the army. And even though lately people talk about Rwanda and their militaristic stand, especially when it comes to Congo and the war in Congo, you have to put it within the context of genocide. More than 2 million people left and went to Congo. And we talk about genocide as if it was yesterday. We are commemorating 15 years. And yet, last week, we had people, survivors being killed again. So that it didn't end. So these are the people who stopped the genocide and now in power in Rwanda. Everywhere you go, and these are still there. They didn't bury the bones. The churches are like this, the memorials, because they want at least the world to know that this was not something that we imagine. So sometimes when you go and look at Kigali now, that is pretty modern in terms of how it has been rebuilt. It's with a sense of regret that I see it rebuilt, because it has taken the last, connection to whatever we used to know. I preferred it when it was destroyed, actually, when you think about it. But this was everywhere. This was in a school in a southern place where I go to teach every summer. It's not like the beautiful memorial where the people from foreign countries come and go and visit. These ones are like this. And you have people who go and tend the bones, of the children. And what the president said when he was visiting the United States, he said, we are the first generation charged with the responsibility to rebuild post-genocide Rwanda. And this is our promise to prosperity and to the world. And really, whether I talk about the political approach to rebuilding Rwanda, and it has its own controversial aspects to it, but what all the Rwandans have been involved in for the last 15 years is to try to heal those wounds. And this is the most difficult thing, as you can imagine, on personal, on national, but also in our place in the world, how you see yourself. Because there's a certain identity it gives you. When you are a survivor of genocide, you don't, there's something about it. You see yourself before and after. There's something missing there. And I think, Rwanda has many challenges, the biggest ones being that to solve the problem of insecurity in the region has been the politics of rehabilitation of the people who killed. So this was the first time when they brought back 1,500,000 people. 1,500,000. Even if among these people there were no killers, resettlement of 1 million people is tough. Now we are talking about a very poor nation. And among those people, they have at least 800,000 who have killed. They include children, they include women, they include men, and you are trying to bring them back. Under which which conditions? Sometimes there are no conditions because the country is not fit with infrastructure to trial these people. Just to give you an example, even the International Tribunal, that has more money, more capacity, they've been able to deal with more than 70 people. Now you can imagine when you deal with people like this, so it's very difficult. The challenges are this, even in a center, the one that you beautifully presented, so I'm not even going to say anything about FORA, but, the youngest were about 6 months, the ones who survived. And sometimes the ones who were leading the whole family were 9 years old or 10. But now those children have had children, because these are kids who are more exploited than other children. They don't have families to help. So this was a common sight every day, wherever you went. Two children wandering in the countryside, not really knowing where they were going. Sometimes they're just trying to survive. These are genocide suspects who are in prison, and it's a serious challenge to reconciliation and justice. How do you bring true reconciliation or just without true justice? You have to bring a certain sense of justice, obviously. I'll talk briefly about reconciliation when we look at the movie because you can ask questions, because it's a part of the what I say when I talk about women and so on and so forth. But that's one of the most positive things to happen to Rwanda. What they call gacaca, or traditional approach to challenge impunity and facilitate reconciliation, is mostly tended by women. And this is because of historical reasons. There are more women than men. And usually women also were not involved in the killings. So there are people who have been chosen as people of integrity. So women are moving into, this is when they are screening for the gacaca. The women in Rwanda society were like other women in Africa. Traditionally speaking, they were not really devoid of power. Women had power. They were not dependent. They had commerce, they did many things. But colonialism and new religions, including Islam and Christianity, narrowed their functions, their sphere of influence, and mostly undermined their standing. And independence in Africa didn't really bring any promise to women. So it fell short. But now in Rwanda, for instance, the new constitution provides for a minimum of 30% for women. As a matter of fact, right now, women, the women's numbers are larger than the men. We have 53 women in Congress out of 47. And it's not because there were more women, it's because of their ability. Women are moving forward, and I think It's something, and it's the highest in the world, by the way, that proportion when you talk about it. And because of that, and because of also women issues, specifically women issues, especially when you talk about rape, it's better. Women are starting to talk, they are starting to build organizations because they have people who understand that this is a priority. It's a priority. They've achieved incredible milestones, especially in food productions, the majority in Congress, and backbone of rural production, and creation, especially of incredible organizations that you see when we look at women who were raped and eventually who have started to rebuild in Rwanda. The Vision 2020 that the country has embarked on is putting emphasis on education, because they believe that to end genocide, you need an informed population, people who are educated. So they've put money in technology, they've put money in primary education, and now it's compulsory. People can have primary and secondary education for free. So it's a big development. And obviously, I think, computers mostly donated from the United States. Even the remotest of villages have their computers. So it's helping to be connected to the world as well. It's something that, yeah. So this is private initiatives, building, for instance, microfinance and so on and so forth are the stuff that people are attempting to try to help people in the rural areas. But obviously the challenges remain. And the biggest challenge is, until now, as a matter of fact, it's something I might show you that the whole Rwandan community have started to do all over the world, is what they call the $1 campaign. Because the survivors of genocides are still kind of behind. They are not, their issues are not addressed. The majority still live in rural areas. And even though the country is trying, but they have priorities. And when you have non-profit organization, usually they come and they go to cities. They don't go to places like where we have been working for the last couple of years. So I don't know if you have enough on genocide or if you want to see it in the video, but there's a small, quick PowerPoint presentation on the scenes of genocide. And then we can see the movie and you can ask questions if you want. I'll talk after the movie because it brings certain personal stuff, so we'll have a quick time to talk. Thank you. He's going to do the movie? Yeah, let's begin with the movie then. Then we'll continue. Can we put on English version? There's the French and the English.
course of just 3 short months, between April and July 1994, close to 1 million Rwandans were slaughtered. It was the swiftest genocide in human history. Neighbors hacked neighbors to death. Husbands strangled wives. Young men raped old women. Tutsi girls and women were targeted. Without fathers, brothers, or husbands, Rwandan women must not only survive but build a new life. Their courage is inspiring. Mukatabana, widow, survivor. For these women, survivors of the genocide, song and dance are a form of therapy.
Those who dare speak up and testify about the genocide show their courage. If some cannot speak for themselves, you must speak for them and say what you know without lying, right? Paradoxically, the way I see it, the genocide helped us. Before, Rwandan women were treated like children. Even if they found employment after their studies, they never thought their salary could really help their family. They had always been told that only the money earned by their husband was of any value. But once the genocide was over, there were no husbands, no father figures, so they had to forge ahead to do everything for the family themselves.
FORA, in charge of the Hosanye, Organization for Widows of the Genocide.
So many of us were widowed. Nothing could be accomplished without solidarity. We got together and decided to take action. We had no houses, no homes. Essentially, we've been stripped. We had to join forces.
Monique Kagera, pharmacist.
Surviving the genocide made us realize the value of life. It takes strength to survive and to live when you're on the brink of death. Life can disappear in the beat of a heart, but surviving is still possible. That's why post-genocide power comes from living and from working. Never in my life did I even once imagine that I would end up with a family of 10, 15, 20, 25 children.
A merchant specialized in scrap metal.
I buy scrap metal from different people. It creates jobs. The majority of these employees are women. This wasn't heard of before, but today women even build houses. There's nothing Rwandan women can do. They're the ones who work the best and with the most energy.
Dr. Gasasira, Athanasis, consulting physician.
The genocide changed many things for women. Before, you could not have a woman as a witness in a court of law, but now they are active in every jurisdiction and in the Gacaca courts. For the most part, women were not involved in the genocide. It was the men. You won't find many men among the righteous.
The rapist told me, we won't beat you or threaten you with looks, but we will kill you cruelly by raping you. And so they raped me from April 18 to July 4, 1994. It was only then that I saw the sun again. Some of the rapists told me, we'll infect you with every imaginable disease, and with AIDS you will die howling, suffering a death worse than that of your relatives. This isn't a nightmare, this is a reality that lives with me. They are there, the rapists. I can hear them, I can see them. Because I have rebuilt my life since, I don't expect them to do it to me again. I'm no longer the Athanasi of the genocide. I must show them that I'm strong. It's as if I had wings. I beat them and send them scattering. I start here, and then I strike there. I scratch them. And then I grow calmer. These bodies that haunt me, I cast them to the ground. Then I hop into my bed, feeling relieved, and I get to sleep soundly.
Maria Jeanne and her singing group praise the women. Stop isolating yourself. Get involved in the women's associations. Atanazi Mukatabana shows us her old classroom.
For 8 years, I was a teacher in this classroom. Grade 4, business and accounting. I taught civic education and politics. In other words, I covered subjects like citizenship and patriotism. I could never have imagined that my students would take part in the genocide. Yet many did. The head prefect of our school was killed by one of my former students. Now I have left teaching to look after the sick, those who need to be washed, to be fed or helped in other ways, those who need our compassion.
In Gisozi, the Kabugu village of hope, here do live HIV/AIDS infected women.
Come closer so we can really see each other. This young woman is Christina Kamire. She is one of our center's neighbors. She has come to seek advice about AIDS.
We had to be tested for AIDS, so I went. I told my older sister she should be tested too. She found out that she's also HIV positive.
How did she take the news? And you, deep inside, how do you feel about it?
I thought about it, and it was hard. I broke down, I cried. Then I calmed down because I realized that this is what we all have to live with. Here, women learn to make postcards. These are made from banana bark, and others are made with grass. These represent a Rwandan woman after the war. Her eyes are almost closed. She was raped during 3 months. She was ashamed. She worried about how other people viewed her. Now that you know part of my story, well, this woman was me. I felt people walking by knew what had happened to me. AIDS is just one aspect of my work. Sometimes I go to the rural district of Kigali to see a young woman called Janet Hamitic. Janet lives in Nyamata. She suffered a great deal during the war.
Janet Ainamiye at the Nyamata market.
I suffered a lot during and after the genocide. But now that I have learned how to sew, I'm not quite as poor. A benefactor gave me a sewing machine. It allows me to eat. I used to live in the Kanazi sector, in the Nyarugati unit. During the war, we took refuge in the swamps. Papa and Mama were killed during the genocide. My mother's death was cruel. They slit her throat and cut her legs. The main artery in her throat was cut, and when I tried to give her water, It would only spill out. An hour later, she was dead.
Don't be afraid. Really don't. I myself was raped by more than 500 men. Raped in my own home, in front of my own children. See? They had just killed my husband. We must testify about the cruelty of these people. We must stand together. Do you feel up to this? Can you go on?
We stayed in the swamps at the mercy of the killers. When the genocide ended, I was 13. I became a single parent to my brothers and sisters, a child raising other children.
Children, come, we have a visitor.
I'm glad to see you.
These children, I inherited them. It's like I gave birth to them all in 1994. These children have seen terrible, terrifying things.
The FORA heads the Rosalier Consolation Association, bringing together 300 widows in southern Rwanda.
To earn a living, we thought of raising pigs. They are the specialty of the region. We have other projects as well. For example, we set up a storehouse to keep our supplies from being stolen. Here are the beans. Up there, we have beans and some sorghum. Here is the sorghum. Sorghum is used to make stew and beer.
Mukatabana is Speciosa, a widow herself. She's a member of parliament representing the RPF in Italy, the party in power.
That Mama Dafroza, she's a born organizer. The Forces Association, Tuhozani, paid for part of my studies because I really wanted to study.
Rwanda, 48% of the elected officials are women. It's a proportion unique in the world.
There are many women here, not only because of the set quota, but because of their ability. There was a competition, and they won. This new reality should spread to the four corners of the earth, because there are countries where women are still being dominated. Our children will grow up without the myth of female inferiority. Boys and girls will build their country as equals.
The largest flour mill in East Central Africa is headed by Félicien Mukatabana.
Nous avons toujours employé aux environs de 20% de personnel féminin, même pour les travaux de construction habituellement réservés aux hommes. C'était pas très courant qu'on voit les femmes travailler sur les chantiers avant. C'est après le génocide de 1994 qu'on voit de plus en plus de femmes vaquer à toutes les occupations, tous les emplois.
Musinga Esteri, widow and merchant.
bajya bakarama udufaranga dukeya nkakora nkagura utwuma kandi nkatugurisha n'abantu babijyana mu Rwanda.
Surrounded by male colleagues, Francine Niyonsaba, one of the few Rwandan female mechanics. The Similar's, the Association of Raped Women in Zaire, southern Rwanda. They welcome us singing and dancing. They have the courage to testify.
This old mom is doing well. You put products in your hair? Yeah, beautiful. Tell me, 11 years after the genocide, do you remember who raped you?
My name is Jedia. I was faced with the problem of rape at the same time as my 6-year-old daughter. In spite of everything, life goes on.
My name is Diane Ingabi. My mother and I were raped together. They left her and came on me. But by the grace of God, we are still breathing. What hurts me most is that I am not able to concentrate on my studies. I keep thinking about how they raped us, my mother and me. We're penniless, and I have no school supplies. We have nothing, Nothing at all. But my mother begs me to go back to school. It makes me sad, but I have no choice. I have to go make my mother happy.
Mukatabana, one of Athanasi's HIV-infected friends, at the Village of Hope.
In the Village of Hope, I look after visitors and public hygiene. I set bedspreads. They brought me here because I was in bad shape. I was traumatized. Really, I could have gone mad and run into the hills. What happened to me? To tell you how I survived? I can't. Between the 15th and the 20th of April 1994, before finding refuge at the Holy Family, my job was to be a sex slave. No one with AIDS has any energy, even when we try hard.
A play about the genocide in the Nyamirambo area of Kigali.
Ibyo ntabwo ari ikibazo mugomba gutsembatsemba bose mukamara nyakubahwa konseye ni ukugerageza gushaka mukamataje gashega mugakora icyo gikorwa mugatsemba mugasize niyo ndabafite barahari abagabo bakomeye kuko ameze neza bashobora gukora barahari ahantu hose hize hari umututsi mukamutsemba mutababariye yaba umusaza yaba umukecuru yaba nabo babandi bagenda buvugwa abo bose mugomba gutsemba mukamara ibikoresho abasaba hafi kuza bazaza babafasha
Pharmacists. The children adopted by Monique Kanyera. There were 40 of them after the genocide, but with the studies and marriages, there are no more than a dozen left. Now the breakfast time at Monique Kanyera's. She became mother to a very large family after the 1994 genocide.
It is out of love. I want them to understand that I didn't take them in out of pity. I love them. What helps me live helps them live. We share everything. We're truly united. Their parents are gone, so I am their mother, not their benefactor.
Courage, Monique. Hey, kids, you have to help your mother. Very few of the people on this picture have survived. It was a great day. The wedding of your brother Martin.
Yes, my brother.
He was marrying Immaculée Umubiei, his fiancée. Here is Canisius, with his hands on his godchild. Canisius was my husband.
You were there as well.
Yes, I don't understand why I'm not in the picture.
You were probably inside talking to the guests.
Possibly. It was beautiful. Families coming together. It was a joyful time. No one expected the abyss that was to come and surprise us.
The falls of the Akagera River swallowed up thousands of bodies during the genocide.
I had to stay here until the end of the genocide. I couldn't escape. See the houses all around. Over there, for example, 2 women were killed. During the genocide, my body was always covered with the smell of sweat, alcohol and sperm. The predominant stench was that of sperm. Everything smelled of sperm for a long time afterwards. Even drinking tea was like swallowing sperm. I was constantly nauseous. My belly ached. This business with sperm finally ended much later when I decided to get tested. We are at Dr. Gassasira's. I came here for a blood test. I wanted to find out if I had AIDS.
Actually, when she found out, she was somehow traumatized.
When I read negative, I didn't think it had anything to do with me. It wasn't the result I was expecting. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't grasp the meaning of negative. I wasn't happy. It was only afterwards, when the doctor explained it. He said to me, "Do you believe in God?" "Yes," I replied. "Then, believe in this result." In 2001, I had another blood test, and the hospital found me to be in good health. So, I'm in perfectly good health. this woman here.
Imigongo, murals produced with calf manure and plant pigments. These women preserve the Imigongo tradition. At the Kakira Craft Center in the Gisaka Migongo area, this is Wamaria Bazisa, the director.
During the genocide, there was a total of 12 of us, young girls, in this association. Out of these 12 members, only 2 survived the genocide. The only ones left now are Jean Nyiraneza and me, Maria Vasilisa. Not a day goes by when we don't think about our friends who were killed.
Today, for the first time in 11 years, Atanazi's children came with her to the Genocide Memorial in Gisozi, Kigali.
You saw him? Your dad? Do you feel better now? We'll have to come back here often, in memory of your father.
March by Torchlight. Maria Jeanne and her singing group. Babies tortured, I remember. I groan at the thought of their atrocious deaths. Their mothers were humiliated. I bow down in constant tribute to them. I do not ask you to remember, you remember constantly. Anything that touches you brings back memories of him or of them. Inside the memorial, extracts from Kangura, the genocidal periodical. With its 10 racist commandments, Kangura promotes the exclusion of Tutsi women. National Heroes Cemetery in Kigali. Agathe Uwilingiyimana, Prime Minister, killed on April 7, 1994, along with her 10 Belgian girls under a United Nations mandate.
This woman fought for peace. She is among those who loved our country the most. She rightly belongs in our National Heroes Cemetery. Look, we are still in mourning. Our wounds reopen when we come back here. Why don't these people who hurt us come and say, "Forgive me, I mistreated you"? That's what we'd like. It won't bring our loved ones back. But if the one who hurt you could at least say, "My sister, I killed your husband, I killed your child. Do what you will with me, but forgive me." No one has come to me yet, though we do see each other, and sometimes we even hug. I am mellowing, and I still hope that his heart will burst, and that he will come to me. But it's all in vain, really. It's been 11 years now. Where will the apologies come from? There is talk of reconciliation. Even forgiveness could be granted. But who forgives who? If they are not coming to see me, the victim, who else would they be asking forgiveness from? But I keep waiting. I'm still patient, still waiting.
Utamuliza Eugenie, international civil servant, widowed by the genocide.
They rounded us up here in Kaveza, next to the dead bodies. They made us sit down while they got ready to resume the killings. I saw 2 people get killed and I fainted. I didn't see anything else. When I came to, the weight of the bodies was suffocating me. I tried to work myself free. A man walked by. He said my father had been good to him, so he brought me back home. I couldn't speak. I walked ahead of him, and he brought me to my house. As I was getting out from under the bodies, I saw my husband. They had shattered his skull. It's an image that will be with me forever. I have to learn to live with it and to overcome.
When she talks about the image of the crushed skull etched in her heart, it reminds me of what I felt in my own. Some tell us survivors that we have the heart of a wild animal. No, really. What we want is to continue to live, but not live in ignorance, haunted by the thought that it might be this person or maybe that one, always living in doubt. For that reason, the Gacaca courts have the right vision to fight doubt and hatred.
According to Gacaca courts, the truth heals. These women of the polyclinic sing and dance. As Rwandans, they say, we support reconciliation and the Gacaca courts. Gacaca, a session of the community tribunal in Nyamirambo, Kigali. A survivor testifies.
As you know, the Gacaca community tribunals are the topic of the hour. We must say what we've heard. Give names so they can be questioned.
Virtually, all the Catholic churches became human slaughterhouses. Hundreds of Tutsi refugees were killed here in the Holy Family Church.
Many of the faithful came here, but few survived. This church had nothing to do with peace. In fact, I know some who say they can never come back here to pray. As for me, I don't compare my story to that of my friends. I've come a long way since the war, thanks to my spiritual growth. By the grace of God, I have come back to life. I have never considered not returning here. Having a beard doesn't make you a man. Actions do. Being a real man, a real woman, is to move forward, to have plans.
Athanasi and her friends with HIV in the Kaguru village of Hope, Kigali, sing and dance. Athanasi joins her friends from the polyclinic at Kigali's market.
Talk to me, my dears. We must talk. When she learns to talk, she'll come and keep me company.
Athanasi and the other mother's courage, thank you very much. I offer this film to you and to my own mother, my mother Courage, assassinated on April 22nd, 1994 in Butere, southern Rwanda.
I just wanted to tell you this is really difficult for these women to tell their story. Because we've had, when we talk about trying to reconstitute even genocide, narratives are very difficult to come by. People are not, especially if you have been raped. So this took a lot of courage, and, that's why we call it Mother Courage. Thank you. So if you have any questions, please go ahead. Thank you. Yes.
Have any of the perpetrators actually been brought to justice? Any of the,
In the Gacaca, yes. Gacaca is, as you know, is the traditional way to try to deal with justice, but with an eye toward rehabilitation. It's an incredible program. You have about 800,000 people. So they believe it will take 1 million years if you go through the traditional type of justice. And yet we believe that for people to move forward, you have some sense of justice. So that's what they came up with. And in a way it works. In certain places, especially because people are able to find where their loved ones are buried. As a matter of fact, last summer my husband found the remains of his own family because of the Gacaca traditional system. So what do? They accept less punishment, but they tell people where they have buried the people. So even for that alone is a big thing for Rwandans who are trying to move forward and to live in this country. Yeah. But there are very few, and as a matter of fact, it will be stopped pretty soon, I think within a year, the Gacaca. So it's very difficult, when you talk about justice and, as I said, there are not really many lawyers. These are people who are trained, and most people don't have any type of education, any type of legal education at all. So it's very difficult. But I think without anything else, this seems to be, even if it's a symbolic justice, it's still, justice. Yes, please.
You mentioned that there's compulsory education now, and that is free. Who has access to it?
All the primary and secondary school students, all the people potentially can go to school in primary and secondary education for free by government. The problem, for instance, when we talk about the people in the rural area, especially if you are a survivor, even when there are schools open, taking the opportunity is tough for people who don't have any kind of social outlet or anything like that. But so that's the entire campaign we are beginning now to see that even the people who are far removed from wherever are able to take the opportunity of education that is being offered. And what is good about the whole political establishment right now is the decentralization, because now you have smaller units who are independent from the government, meaning that people can do pretty much a lot in trying to alleviate the suffering also. It will take a long time, but at least what is happening, there's a political will to try to move forward. And it helps the people who have been working until now to try to create programs and so on and so forth. Yeah. But potentially everyone will be educated, but taking the opportunity to go to school when you don't have parents to push you, like those children who are talking, is another big challenge in the political, the educational system. And once again, thank you. I really have allergies and I'm kind of spaced out, but thank you.
I just want to say that it's always very telling that the commemoration of many of the genocides all happen at the same time of year. And I know Mathilde is involved in the Friends of Rwanda commemoration this year in Stockton.
On the 18th, yes.
On the 18th.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 events, actually 3 events in our community, one on the 19th, one on the 20th, and one in this lecture series on the 21st.
Yeah.
And I have flyers for you, those of you who are going to be back in the area. I know some of you may be heading in other directions and not back, but on Sunday, April 19th, at the Friedman Center, which is on Mayette Avenue in Santa Rosa, the Sonoma County Yom HaShoah commemoration will take place. And the speakers are going to be talking about the importance of passing the memory from generation to generation. And one of the speakers fled from Eastern Europe to Shanghai. It's a very interesting story, and she and her daughter will be speaking at that event, and there'll also be a candlelighting ceremony. But most importantly, one of the people who's been coming to the lecture series and has been involved in the work of the Alliance has been working with a group of college students to write a pledge or a legacy from his generation to the generations who are survivors of genocide. So I'll pass some of these flyers around. I also encourage you, some of you had the bowl move through by you early in the lecture, and if you're moved to put a few more dollars in, it'll be available. Thank you.
Thanks for your generosity.
Thank you very much. Oh my God. Thank you very much.
Oh, Mathilde.